Each week on the Million Dollar Flip Flops podcast with your host, me, Rodric, we talk with game changers and thought leaders from across the globe. These are business leaders that are leaving an indelible mark on our society, whether we realize it or not. No topic is off limits, from information to technology to just general business or even families and spirituality. Nothing is left untouched. We're not here just to scratch the surface. We're here to actually dive into the business mind of other CEOs across the globe and just have a conversation. But you get a front row seat to that every week. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If there's anything you would like to hear on your end or anyone you would recommend as a guest, please don't hesitate to reach out. Let's get to the show. I was a guest on a podcast with Adam Strong. He's over in Cyprus right before I hopped over to you. And we were talking about kind of my business journey and how I built, I'll call it the first big company, which was the construction company, but how I built the second company very differently. And the construction company it didn't operate if I was the bottleneck, right? Everything had to go through me. The big decisions had to all go through me. There was no autonomy, and just the lessons I learned from that. So if you're able to leave your phone is a good indicator that you have learned those lessons.
It's the benefit. It's one of the benefits of having business partners. You know, there's obviously the drawbacks and there's pros and cons to everything, but having business partners that you can trust to be able to fall back on, to hold down the fort when you can peace out. That's probably the biggest moment of relief is knowing that you're not the bottleneck.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? That's probably a good place to start the show, my friend. So tell me, for those who don't know who Dan Grace is, just give me what you're doing now and then kind of a 38-second history of how you got to that point.
So Dan Grace up in New Hampshire, I have a couple different businesses, the main one being a well drilling and water treatment business. Got lucky, really luck and timing had a lot to do with it, as it does with a lot of us in business. You know, success and failure can play a lot on that. Not anything in particular that we did, but it's going pretty well. The groundwater industry is big. It's safe from a lot of things that other businesses are not. Yeah, I got into it 20 years ago. I was able to purchase part of the company 10 years ago, and we've continued to expand throughout the entire state of New Hampshire, opening 3 locations. So that's the main target. That's the main premise that we're going after every day, is staying in the groundwater industry and growing this thing up and taking care of the customers around us. But that's essentially my gig. I don't know, 38 seconds. I didn't start my stopwatch.
Well, that's what you're doing now. How did you get into well drilling? Because I'm always fascinated about just the niches. You know, everybody thinks doctor, lawyer, accountant, like there's so many ways to make millions of dollars, right? And
yeah.
Well drilling would be one of them. So like, how did you get into that?
Again, by luck. My best friend since I was a little kid, his parents started it. Again, great entrepreneurs, very hands-on entrepreneurs, academically terrible, barely read or write, but could weld, fabricate, and run a business. He partnered with his brother-in-law or future brother-in-law, created this well drilling company, and they really had to grind, man. They grinded through the 80s, the late 80s when everything dipped. So that's how I fell into this. Their sons were working for them. I did my own thing. Prior to that, I worked for myself since I was 13. Similar to you, I found customers that needed things done that I could do that they were aged out of. And I had a great pipeline through my mother, who worked in an affluent area of elderly people that needed help with their lawns. I got a ride up after school, and it started at 13, making my own money doing that. There were some other side things. So just always continued to work for myself. And it was a big jump to go to work for them when they needed help in 2000, 2001. I'd already been doing quite a bit with the landscaping end of things in my life and was doing really well at it. But they needed help, and it looked like a good opportunity. The water industry is not going anywhere no matter what. I didn't really have that foresight, but it worked out that way. But I said, I'll work for you, but I really want to own it one day, because I'm a much better rule maker than I am a rule follower. I'm hard to manage, I guess, when I see something that's not logical, I want logic, and I like to get that logic. And I'm not as good at it. I'm not that quintessential. You have it. Like, you have it hands down. I've got another friend similar. You don't let barriers get in your way. I can see it. You just bowl right through it. You don't think about things are going to happen no matter what. I tend to overthink a little bit, but it's just enough to kind of keep me in a pretty balanced state. But yeah, that's kind of the brief history, but I jumped right into it. I decided to opt out, not go to college, and with a high school education and a willingness to just keep grinding.
My question would be, because a little bit of my story where, entrepreneur my whole life, and then I got that job that almost killed me. and literally almost killed me. And, why I made that decision, is because I was chasing money, and it's why I ended up anxious and depressed and semi-suicidal. The whole deal is because money's not one of my top values. Freedom, autonomy, the things that you had in your landscaping business. Did those things cross your mind when you went to get a job with the well company?
I think I was too young and ignorant to even think about it. But I'll tell you, when it was an actual job before I had partnership in the company, it got to a point where I got really sour. There was a time, I think about maybe 2012, it hit me where I was just going down a bad path of fighting the system, fighting the micromanagement that I just wasn't prepared to handle. And it wasn't a good thing. And also dedicated every minute to grinding. That was my thought on how to get rich, right? I want money. It's like, I got to get the girl, I got to get the kids, I got to get the house, I got to get now it's money. We need money, and it was working 14 hours a day. It was always on the phone. It was always on the computer. And it was like, that's what I thought you had to do to be successful, right? I'm coming out of the gate without anything. I don't have a college degree. And again, that era, right? Like everyone pressed college. I'm not saying college isn't good for a lot of people, a lot of professions, but it was right out of high school, you got to go to college. I had opportunities at some decent schools I could have gone to, but for me, it just, I would have probably fouled it up and thought I could do this on my own. But the mindset was, you got to go to school to be successful. You got to have this degree, you got to, something to fall back on. And it's like, man, just wasn't for me. But I thought I had to overcome that by really dedicating my soul, and forfeiting a lot of time and spirit, and that angst, that build. I thought I was bulletproof too, and you push through all these things until you can't. And I never thought I'd hit that wall because I'd never seen it. And then I hit that wall, and I remember being like, what is this feeling? Like, my chest is tight, like I'm breathing short, and I actually called my primary care, which I didn't attend often, but I said, what is going on? Am I having a heart attack? She's like, no, it's called anxiety. I was like, no, there's no way. I'm way too tough for anxiety. Like, I can't get anxiety. That's for weak people, right? Like, right. It bottles up and catches up until then you have to learn to manage it, right? Because once it's there, it's like always right there, at the precipice of coming back. So how do you balance your life so that you can stay away from that feeling? Because that is not a comfortable feeling. I did not like it at all. And I'm not saying it hasn't resurged since, but definitely much better to manage it with balancing the work-life thing and doing what you love and really enjoying what you do. And, doing things like this, jumping on with you, and just talking about it.
I was describing just who's my ideal client, right? Because I can help entrepreneurs. I mean, the Waves method, everything in the book can help anyone, but I can't work with everyone, right? So I have to have that really niched down person that is my guy or gal, right? And I want to know which one of these, because I heard it and what you just said, which one of these resonates with you. But I basically identified 5 people and the 5 stages of an entrepreneur. And I've been every one of them, but I always leave before I get to number 5. So I want to know if this resonates. The believer is number 1. I've got this thing. Everybody's going to want my thing. I'm going to be a billionaire on the beach. I just need to get my thing in front of more people. That's the believer. The showman, people are starting to buy my thing. I'm comfortable. I've got the SUV. I've got the house. I'm working 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. I could make my own schedule, but I don't, because if I leave, everything falls apart. That's the showman. Then there's the anxious philosopher. And this is where I come in. I make plenty of money. I've been around long enough that lots of people want my thing, but I wake up every day and say, is this all there is? I don't know what to do. I can't talk to people about it because I have all the things that they want. So if I complain about my misery in this stage, I'm just a dick because, well, you've got the money, you've got the house, you've got the kids. I don't care about your problems. I want those things. So I feel isolated. I feel alone. I know I need to change something, but I don't know what it is. And I don't know who to talk to. That's the anxious philosopher. Then you go into peaceful warrior, right? Which is why I wrote this book. It's why I do what I do, is to get you through stage 3 as fast as possible, where you've identified what you want. You go out into the world and you build a business that serves you because you know what you want as a person first. You're not anxious. You're not afraid of the phone. You are able to take vacations and you're able to really enjoy your life. And then the last one's business Buddha. And I always say, I always sell my companies before I make it there. And then I start back over at the believer.
It's a vicious cycle, my friend.
So, I kind of heard that in what you were saying about your journey, where I can just grind it out and it's going to be fine. And at some point, it sounds like you took that more of a deep dive into what you want and what you need to do about it.
Yeah. I mean, the cycle's super familiar. the one that the whole thing. I'm trying to get to that stage 5 though.
Yeah, it's hard.
That Buddha stage, right? I've definitely, this year has been eye opening for a lot of reasons, and trying to sink back into what is enough, right? There's never enough. No matter what you get or what you find, and it can resonate with that. Like, oh, what do you got to complain about, right? You've got great employees, you've got some money, you can do what you want, but it's not enough. And I think that's what keeps the whole humanity growing. It takes people like that to want to do something else or do something more. We're not going to stop. You're not going to stop. It's just going to keep going. Since the well business has started, I've dove into venture capitalism a little bit. It was something that I was interested in, and it's an avenue to understand more. We started a solar power company. We saw a need for solar power. So I've recently put together a team of a few key players and I keep getting the feedback, oh, like, you need something else to do. You need something else to do. It's like, well, the bridge is built, man. Like, it's there. We just got to walk across it. And most people get halfway across that bridge, and where those people turn around, we keep going, and that's, I think, the difference. Like, yeah, you're going to hit obstacles when we push through those. And there is a bit of angst that comes with that, and unknown. It's a little more comfortable now because my kids are fed and have a roof over my head. It's not as dire as it was back when I was broke.
Right.
I got to make a mortgage payment. I got to make a car payment. So it's a different type of angst. It's an angst of like, am I real? Right? Like, we have a successful well business. It's one of the biggest in the state. Got a good crew of people. Like, do we just get here by luck? Like, is this all luck? It's that imposter syndrome feeling. Like, I don't think this is real. How did I get into this position? But continually, by working hard and making decent decisions, keep finding yourself in those situations. So it's got to be somewhat real.
Maya Angelou was writing her 11th or 12th book and said that this is it. They're going to find out. They're going to find out I've run a game on everybody and I don't know what I'm talking about.
It was me yesterday. I'm on a Zoom call with venture capitalists, from California. These brilliant minds. They put together this team of, and fortunately, I was lucky to somehow find my way into this through. They were looking for acquisition, and through conversations, I decided that wasn't for me. It's a nice opportunity out to hit eject, and understanding that I would have a boss then. And the value of that is it's just not worth it. We're doing fine without that. But they added me to the advisory board. Now I'm advising this company on the West Coast that's looking to purchase about 30 more assets this year and invest in groundwater, seeing that it's on the up and up. And same with renewable energy. They're on a trend upwards no matter what, regardless of the market. It's a nice safe place for them to invest their money. But I was on a Zoom call with these guys, and they're educated, they're smart. And here I come with my redneck mentality of break it down to the simplest thing, and they're like, that works, and they keep bouncing back to what I had to say, and I was like, man, they're gonna catch on. I'm BSing these people. Like, this is all it's factual based BS, it feels like. And we get off the call and like, oh, that was great, you added so much, this is like invaluable. And I was like, I say what I see, and eventually I think they're gonna catch on, right? But what's the saying? Like, if you think you know it all, that's the biggest problem guy in the room, is the guy who thinks that he knows all the answers, right? It's those of us who know we don't know is why we're good at what we do. It certainly adds to it, right? Humility. Yeah. And it's not even on purpose humility, right? Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. I know in my experience, I really enjoy the building of a company. Once it's up and running, and that's okay. But it's really in those initial stages where you're building something new. Is that partially what drives you to do like the solar company and to get into the venture capital? And what's behind that? I don't know. I almost think it's fear. I wish, I haven't done it enough to go from ground up and be successful. You've done this several times where you obviously failed too, right? Like, you found it something not to do. We've all had those moments where you thought you were getting into something and you fail, right? You found a way not to do something, is what they say. And I agree. Like, you got to go and then I find that, like, until you're invested, like if you're really invested in something and believe in it wholeheartedly, you can't fail. Real quick example of this is there's a guy in Calhoun County, Illinois, faked his way into college, faked himself as a student in a dental school so that he could get in there and make impressions for, I don't know if you all seen them, the Billy Bob teeth, the fake little Halloween teeth. This guy was so invested that this was going to make money. And who would ever think that, right? Like, how many people would give up on that idea? His first year after making it through and grinding all this time, $50 million in sales. Like,
I
That guy
love stories like
believed
that. I
in his
love stories
product,
like
man.
that.
He's like the richest guy in the county now on Billy Bob tea. They got Billy Bob bobblehead sticker, you name it. It's kicking around. It's still a thing these years later. And this guy was invested in this, and that's what kind of gives me light. Like, hey, if you really, really dig in and you don't turn around when it gets hard, you keep going. But I think the growth. I think looking back, once you have something successful, that's when it's like, man, I would go back and start this thing all over again. It's easy to say once you've made it, right?
Sure.
It's scary as hell when you're in the process. Like it's, oof, I think it's doing something hard. I do it myself, like with physical things. I don't know if it's my escape. I get a lot of comments, because I never sit still. I'm always going, finding a new challenge. I find I operate best when I have a goal. I set a really tough goal and try to do it. That's my meditation too, because I can't relax my brain. I've tried to meditate a million times where I try to sit still and try to focus on my breathing, and my head's going, bop, 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 bop. And I guess that's part of it, right? You have to learn to bring that back in. And I'm still working on it to this day. I'm still working on that thing. But if I go do something really hard, it's my way of meditating. Like I can't focus on anything but that, whether it's running a mountain. Just recently, I did put a 30 miler together with 4,000 peaks, and I tried to do it in this crazy time, and that gave me this goal to work towards. And as I was training for it, I could focus on every foot and every step, and it would calm my whole nervous system. It'd be like, so these hard things, and I only bring that up to bring it back to business. It's a hard thing. And when you have that hard thing to focus on, it directs your attention towards it, and you're going to succeed. Even if you fail, you're still succeeding.
My question is, because I ask this of myself when I do anything, is, and I think a lot of it is back to, it's why I have the Waves method. It's why I wrote the book. It's so you do that deep dive into yourself and know what it is you want. But how do you determine, there's grinding through something to get to the end, and you see that being success for a lot of people. And you always see the meme, right? Where like the dude's digging and then there's the diamonds on the other side of the dirt, and he turns around and goes back, and the other guy kept going, right? But how do you know that it's the right thing to keep grinding after?
I guess you don't. You just got to keep going. If you believe, that's what separates it. That guy, one scoop away, right? And he's got his riches in front of him. There is dead ends. There is dead ends. And I think that's just paying attention to the numbers and what's making logical sense, stepping away from what you want it to be, right? Because you can't make something that it's not. I've seen people fail a lot at, hey, I'm going to have this great restaurant in this little town, this little sleepy town. And they try to bring the best food, but there just isn't enough population. There just isn't enough foot traffic. You can almost, after you've done this enough times, like you can almost put something on a napkin, look at it real quick, write down a couple numbers, be like, this works.
Yeah,
this works. Or you can say, nah, I get ideas brought to me, quite often. And it's like, nah, don't waste your time. That's a dead end. I want to start this rock climbing gym, this kid says, in this small little town. And I'm like, well, real estate's $1 million, $1.5 million. You're going to fit it out with 200 grand. You're starting already here, and you're looking at a membership of $79 a month based on the surrounding area.
For how many 6 people in the neighborhood?
Well, yeah, right. Who's going to show up? Like, in his mind, he's like, no, this is what I really want to do. I'm going to make it great. I'm going to have a class. I'm going to have somebody's already tried that, man. Look at history, right? History will repeat itself. And if I think the avenue is to take something that works and then just make it better. Lawn irrigation and sprinkler systems, it kind of fits with our company. And after years of feedback of everyone desperate to find somebody that needs to do it better, needs to be more communicative, have a bigger network of people to answer the phone calls, have that infrastructure. It's hard to find. And we found that that's something that is a necessity around here. And we can take it and make it better. So this isn't a scary avenue that we're going down. We just started it off this year. So this is an exciting one to watch this one grow, because we already have the infrastructure. We're starting on third base with this one. This is going to be fun to watch grow. I'm excited about this new avenue. Gives us kind of a refire, right? You get complacent, and I don't want to be complacent. Not yet.
So question, I know, for instance, I'm in this coaching group with other coaches, and they're at various levels. There's people doing $1,000 a month. There's people in there doing $100,000 a month in coaching. And it's always easier for me to see what they're doing wrong. Kind of like you looking at the napkin sketch of the rock climbing gym, right? Like, who do you go to look at your business? I know you've got partners in the well business, but if you're going off on something on your own, you can't see the label from inside the bottle, right? Who's your trusted advisor for something like that?
Right now, as far as the well end of things goes, I kind of reach out to the people that have either been successful in it and already seen the label. We get their
peers
opinions.
In the industry.
Peers in the industry. I also have an advisory board created for my company. So there's 6 of us on the board of directors, and there are 6 good minds that are familiar with this industry. And I feel like if we sit in a room with these 6 good minds, we're going to come up with the best solution. It's not just on me. And this is, I guess where I'm unfamiliar is just doing it all by myself. It was easy when I was a kid and I was doing landscape, and it was just a simple, small beans projects, and I could figure that out pretty quick, and what made money, what didn't make money, and where to put my time. But on the bigger scale of things, I lean on peers in the industry. Same with the solar company. The people I put together in that, I found the best and brightest that I knew, and by doing that, it spreads the pressure out and creates a little bit more flexibility again. So you're not the only bottleneck.
Yeah. I think, what we try to create and what I'm trying to create with this business, we're launching a couple different levels of mastermind right now. And one is, it's super cheap. It's like $100 a month, but it's just for folks that are going through the waves method. And they find themselves without anybody to talk to. It's kind of like that anxious philosopher, right? It's like, once you start doing some of this work, or if you quit drinking, you don't find your bar buddies as interesting anymore. Like, it's that same kind of concept. Who do I talk to about these things? So I wanted to create that community, make it really accessible. And then there's another level of mastermind. And then I look at myself, and I'm in 3 different mastermind groups, and it's similar to having that advisory board. It's like, one of them's $96 a month. The other one's $2,500 a month. And it's completely different sets of people in those 2 groups. But I think having something other than yourself, especially as an entrepreneur. I think you were right at the beginning of the call where there are some benefits to having partners. You get to take some time off. You got people to bounce things off of. But most entrepreneurs, most people listening to this show, they're by themselves. They've built this thing. They can't go to their employees about it. They can't go to their wife about it. Their friends are no help. So it's that outlet. Who do I go talk to? And just kind of try to build that community around like-minded people,
It's excellent, because a lot of the information that the folks that don't have somebody to talk to that's at their level or above their level, they're getting information from people, and it may not be the best information because you just want to get it out there, right? You want to get it off your shoulders. You want to pass that responsibility off to somebody else. Well, so and so said, but who are you talking to?
Right.
Who are you talking to? Are you talking to the right people? So having that outlet, having that chain that you're creating, I think it's instrumental for the success of other businesses.
Yeah. Strategic thought partner. With this business, I'm trying to create things that I wish I had earlier in my entrepreneurial career. Right. So
yes,
same thing. You see the need, you fill the gap.
Absolutely. Make it better. But having access to people like yourself that have done this many times, you felt, geez, read your book,
Right.
It's factual.
I'll leave the show with this. If you had one piece of advice for that anxious philosopher, I'm not going to go with the guy just starting out. I'm going with the guy who has a couple bucks, who feels isolated, who doesn't know who to talk to, knows he needs to change his business, but doesn't know who to ask or what to do. What's one piece of advice you'd give that person?
Sign up for your masterclass.
Dude, this is not meant to be a promotion for me. Dan is not paid to be on this show.
Not even a bit. But finding a resource such as yourself, finding those resources that have done this before, they've gone through the paces. I think that information is instrumental. You don't have to do this alone. Things have been done. These things have been done before. People have already, so learn from other people's history. You're starting on second or third base. It's a lot easier to get home when you can take that knowledge that's already out there.
On the shoulders of giants, right?
Absolutely.
So, well, buddy, I appreciate you being on the show today.
Absolutely. Look forward to seeing what you do.
Thanks, bud.